Good evening. The new planning minister has caused worry among many by calling for a massive increase in land to be built on for new homes up to 2 million acres.
But many struggling to buy say the problem isn't just a shortage of land, but the reluctance of banks to lend. And despite the housing crisis, the South East has nearly 100,000 empty homes.
Yes, let's look at the figures. 22,000 in Kent, that's 3% of its total housing stock. 20,000 in Essex and 21,000 in Sussex. John Ryle has our report.
9% of the South East is developed, and that needs to be increased to 12% to address the region's housing crisis, says the Planning Minister Nick Bowles. A view attacked by environmental groups today as a developer's charter and potentially devastating for Kent and Sussex, where the housing shortage is most acute. But environmentalists are not the minister's only critics. Kent County Council says there's one quick fix that requires no new land whatsoever: bring hundreds of thousands of empty homes back into use. The county's no-use empty scheme has turned thousands of derelict properties into smart homes by offering the owners interest-free loans of up to £25,000. The loans are repaid when the home is sold. Property developer Scott Widows was refused loans by his bank, but the county council said yes. He revamped this empty house in Margate and sold it within days.
Historically, builders have been able to go along and borrow monies for these projects, and banks always want PGs, personal guarantees on their own assets. They're not even doing that. They're not loaning money, so this is not happening. So this is the right intervention for this time in the economy.
Scott's next project: renovating this empty bungalow in Broadstairs. Again, his bank refused a loan, but the no-use empty scheme said yes.
We are borrowing from Kent County Council 25,000 on this one. We expect to spend probably 30, 35, and they sell in the region of between 200 and 250 around here.
Tonight there's mounting pressure for the no-use empty scheme to be rolled out across the South East. Pressure too on the banks and building societies to lend more readily, and pressure on the planning minister to think again before releasing thousands of acres of new land for development. John Ryle for Meridian Tonight.
Well, as John said in that report, one solution to the housing shortage would be to build new houses, hundreds of thousands of them, according to the planning minister. In our London studio now, Sean Spears, Chief Executive of the CPRE, the Campaign to Protect Rural England. You don't want these new houses, do you, Mr. Spears?
I agree with the Minister. We're building too few houses in this country. We need to build more. The question is where you build them, and we don't want them built in open countryside when there are better solutions at hand.
What do you say, though, to the viewers who must despair that they or their children will never be able to get onto the housing ladder because of the shortage that's keeping prices so high?
I'm not sure it is the shortage that's keeping prices high. House prices are high for a whole lot of reasons. And in Spain or Ireland or the United States, where you've had weak planning and plentiful land, you still had very high house prices. There are other reasons for house prices than the shortage of housing.
You see, our report talked about getting empty homes reopened and rebuilt. But are such ideas really only tinkering around the edges? Do we really need housing on a massive scale?
Well, I think we do need a lot more houses than we're currently building. But as I think as your report said, we're not building enough houses because people can't get mortgages. That's one reason. So house builders will build the number of houses they're able to sell. They'll either build them in existing towns and cities, which is where by and large we think they should be built, or if they're given the chance, they'll build them in open countryside. But they're not going to build 200,000 houses if they can only sell 100,000. The other way that houses are built is if the state builds them. And when the state used to build 100,000 houses a home, 100,000 houses a year in council houses throughout most of the post-war period, then we had a lot more houses being built. The government slashed the social housing budget.
But do you accept there's not enough brownfield sites here in southern England and that greenfields will have to be lost because of that?
CPRE has never said no to any development on greenfield. We think it's a last resort. We've identified 1.5 million suitable brownfield land for 1.5 million homes. A lot of that's in the southeast. 400,000 of those homes could be built in London. And we know that house builders currently have planning permission for 400,000 houses across the country that they're not building, but presumably because they think they can't sell them. So just releasing land really isn't any sort of solution.
Sean Spears, I'm most grateful to you. Thanks for joining us.